Hi, I'm Josh Carving. Welcome to another Death Battle prediction video. But first, I finally should probably talk about the finale for last season. So, Agumon up to Wargreymon versus Charizard. The fight was actually beautifully done. I quite enjoyed watching that. And yeah, the fight pretty much went exactly as it should have. Yeah, poor Charizard. Oh god. Making him the only Death Battle combatant to have lost 2 Death Battles. So then, after a nice long wait, here we are, the start of season 3 with Dante versus Bayonetta. This is one of those fights that I've always known was going to happen, but ultimately kind of didn't want it in a way, because I'll get into that in a bit. So first we'll go into Dante and then Bayonetta. So first we'll go with the standard 3 categories, being the power, speed, durability. Then I'll hit up his weapons and notable abilities. So let's go. We got power first. Dante is actually multi-city block power, being able to contend with someone like the Savior, which basically just on sheer size was fully powerful enough to be multi-city block level. But mostly, actually, he doesn't have too many destructive feats besides the 1-inch punch that he used with, which was it? I believe Gilgamesh. He did like a 1-inch punch and it took down like a building-sized block. For speed, he scales to Blitz, which makes him around Mach 20. Other than that, he has very little speed feats himself. But I will actually touch on that speed a bit more later with when I mention Quicksilver. His durability is multi-city block as well, once again scaling from Savior. So for weapons, this is the big list. We have Rebellion, which is his iconic sword. It's just enchanted and deals lots of damage and all that stuff. Force Edge, which becomes Sparta, which is like a scythe spear sword. It's probably one of his best weapons. I'm curious if they're going to give it to him. I don't see why they wouldn't. Ebony and Ivory, which are pistols that can use an ability called Jackpot, which sends the enemies to hell with the last shot. That could actually be pretty cool. Yamato, which is Virgil's sword, that Dante briefly had in Devil May Cry 4. It specifically cuts the demon world and human world, like it splits them with a cut kind of thing, with like dimensional hacks. Alistair is a lightning sword, Ifrit fire gauntlets, Cerberus is like ice triple nunchucks, which sounds badass as hell. Agni and Rudra, which are twin scimitars. They use wind and fire and apparently never shut up. Navan, which is I think the weapon that I knew the most going into this, just from Marvel vs. Capcom. It's like an electric guitar that shoots electricity and bats and stuff like that. And it was an electric witch, basically, before they fought. There is Beowulf, which is power enhancement gauntlets, and Gilgamesh, which are basically the same thing, except they go like all the way up the arms and body. Lucifer makes like these spectral blades appear. Artemis is a gauntlet with beam spam. And then Pandora is basically this box that can turn into all sorts of different weapons. And some of the ones that it has shown, because it's been stated to have 666, but we haven't seen that many. We haven't seen that many at all. The ones that we have seen are a blowgun, a bazooka, a laser cannon, Gatling gun, a mobile missile battery, and a boomerang. It can also let out like a bright flash that damages enemies around him. So then we have his abilities. For example, Quicksilver, which I mentioned before, is a time slow to the point of acting as if it was a Mach 2000 speed. So that basically means that for like the 1 minute at a time that he can use Quicksilver, Dante acts as if he has Mach 2000 speed. So keep that in mind. Then you have Devil Trigger, which is a speed and strength boost, and it acts differently depending on which weapons he's using at the time. So overall, it's basically his Super Saiyan. And it gives him boosted regen as well. And getting into that, the regen is another big thing, because it allows him to basically tank wounds and just re-heal them almost immediately, which is certainly pretty good, though. And then he also has like Doppelganger, which makes a perfect clone of himself. I'm not going to get too much into his various styles because they don't end up being too much like overall in the fight. I went into Doppelganger and Quicksilver, which are basically the two that you need to go into. For weaknesses, his regen slows down as he tires, as he keeps having to fight and regenerate more and more. And then he's also extremely cocky and arrogant, and will only like go actually full out when he thinks he's losing the fight. But I think we all know deep down that his biggest weakness of all is a reboot. So then we're going to get into Bayonetta. In terms of power, early in the game she has beaten enemies that are going up to country level, while she describes herself as being rusty. And she's at least at moon level as the Left Eye when she was able to hurt Jubileus, which is a being who can survive being thrown into planets. Yeah. Then we go into speed. She can dodge meteors that are being grabbed and brought back down to Earth and smashed upon people that are usually brought down in 5 seconds or less. So up a distance to meteors and down is about a Mach 5,000 feet. And she also does the same when Balder basically like telekinetically smashes down satellites and stuff. Yeah, another Mach. It could even be as high as Mach 20,000 based on the distance that the satellite is from Earth, because it's like the maximum distance that satellites can be. So yeah, that's a decent speed gap. That was without Witch Time, mind you, which I'll get into later. Durability, she is equal to or stronger than Jean, who survived a shot from Balder, who casually destroyed the moon. So, Bayonetta's moon level. Have you noticed a theme here where any scale ratios or anything? Because I'm starting to notice something. So I'm going to go into a couple of her abilities, like the ones that are worth talking about, because really she has a bunch of weapons too. It's just they don't end up meaning anything. So she has Witch Time, which basically takes like her perception of speed and makes it so that like she's even faster. So it's like Quicksilver, except she can do it all the time. Like, it doesn't go off. There are entire levels of the game taking place in Witch Time. So when you take them already Mach 5,000 feet and you apply Witch Time to that, it gets even faster. So then you have summoning. She can summon up to 11 basically like demons and stuff. Partial with her Wicked Weaves and fully with her Infernal Weaves. She can also go between the normal world and Purgatorio at will. Purgatorio is basically like a side dimension to reality where she can observe things, but she can't like interact with people. Well, actually, she can. I know she tripped Luca, so yeah, that's basically all I really need to get into. I think we get the idea. This fight is an absolute and utter stomp and a half. On both sides, the weapons that they have are pretty much entirely pointless. This comes down to Bayonetta having, like, absurdly higher stats than he does. Like, multi-city block to moon level for all this shit, so... And then the speed difference is also astronomical, which is 2,000, Mach 2,000 in bursts of, like, a minute against just Mach 5,000 plus whenever she wants. So, and then you have a couple of the common arguments on Dante's side, which is that Yamato will not only be able to get through to Purgatorio, but also be able to ignore Bayonetta's durability. That said, it has been shown several times, even in Devil May Cry, for characters such as Nero, that simple durability is enough to stop Yamato's blade. As well, with Yamato, with the dimension cutting, it's stated to be between the demon and human world, so it's a bit unknown whether or not that would actually apply to Purgatorio. So then it brings us to the regen, which is another common debate. The regen is ultimately pointless when Dante is being one-shotted anyway. Like, we've never seen Dante's regen have to re-heal like a lost arm or like decapitation, or if Bayonetta flicks him and he turns into a fine red mist, he's not regenerating from that, devil trigger or not. The speed difference also makes it so that any possible advantage that Dante could have had through either Jackpot or Yamato or anything like that, it completely nullifies it, because she's over twice as fast as him at minimum, and in base it's an even bigger difference. Makes it so that just nothing he has can even do anything. And then just even on just an experience scale, the enemies are just on an entirely different level between the two of them. Like Asir and Jubileus are like huge in scale against people like Mundus or the Savior, where like they're hurtling through space into the sun and shit like that. It's just a huge difference in scale that puts these two at ends against each other in terms of why Bayonetta would completely stomp. So overall I do think this is a mismatch, but I'm basically happy with it because we're going to get a pretty badass fight out of it. And that's all we can ask for at the end of the day, right? So Torian is going to be working hard on that one. Speaking of the animations, there was some situations during the break where the 1 minute melee, people with Mali, which are hyper gauge, I believe they're called, there was some drama with that, and now basically all the sprite animators that Death Battle had are currently basically like they don't work for them anymore. So with that actually happening, I'm not entirely certain what's going to be happening with the sprite battles, but if you want to continue supporting Hyper Gauge, the people who made 1 minute melee and all the sprite battles, because as far as I know, they were pretty much in the right for the debating, or for the arguments between. So if you want to continue supporting them, check out the new 1 minute melee episode, which is Sasuke versus Ichigo, which was pretty entertaining. And it is now being hosted on Hune's Dojo, which is, I thought stick figures only, but what do I know? So other than that, yeah, just, I guess, continue supporting them, because, hey, they deserve it. They've kept us entertained for quite a while. And with that, I will see you guys next time.